What happens when funders go big, really big? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Rad Solutions Lab, which is a series where we're presenting a set of solutions that are going to, of course, transform lives and at the same time transform the way we do work in the social impact sector. Today, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite solutions, which is more collective impact models. And as I said last time, I will always have a guest with me. So today we have Dan Lewis, at this point, a dear friend and philanthropist who is going to tell us more about what collective impact models look like and what it should look like in the future.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for being here. So, folks, Dan and I have, at this point, almost 10 years of history. So I'll get to summarize a little bit of what Dan is to me, and then we're going to hear more from him, right? So I see him as a very successful businessman who, aside from dedicating his life and his career to that, he really invests a lot of time and energy in indulging in music and in the arts, especially when it's performed by youth. And he's transformed his business success and this passion for the arts into his philanthropic career. He has more than 2 decades investing in the arts. And what's unique about Dan is that he not only invests in the arts and in the organizations that are doing that, but he truly trusts and invests in the leaders that are portraying that work forward. So I hope that Dan is an inspiration to whomever is watching this, because it is thanks to him that Radical Partners got better at collective impact. So what is collective impact after all, right? It sounds very nice when we bring those two words together, but it was thanks to Dan that we got to learn from our friends at the Collective Impact Forum that collective impact is indeed a framework and a methodology that needs to have 5 things that needs to be true in order for them to happen, right? Number 1, a common agenda. We need to be very aligned on what that vision is and what is it that we're trying to do together before we start working together. Number 2, mutually reinforcing activities so that whatever we do works towards that common agenda. Number 3, shared measurement, or else we won't know if we're being successful in our change-making work. Number 4, continuous communication amongst all of these players. And last but not least, for everybody to play together, there's a need for backbone support, right? The ones that are going to be coordinating and orchestrating that work. So all that said, Dan has invested in a very powerful collective impact model in Miami-Dade, Florida, now called Arts Access. And this is where I pass it to you, Dan. How did you get involved in this? And how did Arts Access Miami came to be back in 2017?
Well, prior to 2001, I did nothing but work. I was at Progressive Insurance, hopefully a reasonably good family man, and would exercise. Once I was no longer gainfully employed, I quickly got sucked into the orchestra business. I love going to classical music. I grew up in Cleveland, the Cleveland Orchestra. I remain a great fan of the orchestra. So between 2001 and 2013, I was the board chair of the Florida Philharmonic Orchestra, the last board chair, put it out of business. The Miami Music Association, which was created to support the Cleveland Orchestra Miami residency, which became the best paying travel gig any orchestra had in the world. And then Spring for Music, I was the board chair, which was a 4-year exercise at Carnegie Hall. And I've been on the executive committee of the Cleveland Orchestra and the League of American Orchestras. And so I was immersed in the orchestra business. And one of the things that got me was that boards would typically complain about the reduced number of audience. The orchestra business is dying, and they complain about the lack of audience because it wasn't in the schools. And yet the Cleveland Orchestra and most orchestras do little about that. some stuff, but it's not really core to what they're about. And I decided to focus on that issue and not the orchestra business. Along the way, I got exposed to the San Diego Youth Symphony's vision, which was music education being accessible and affordable for all youth. And essentially that inspired me. And I've changed it a bit so that it's music, creative youth development through music or the arts needs to be effective, accessible, and affordable for all youth. And I'm applying that to Miami-Dade. My interest was that would happen in Miami-Dade. I had great ideas. I went to a number of the executive directors of youth development organizations and the high arts organization, the Miami City Ballet and New World Symphony, and nothing was clicking. So went to Radical Partners and said, I got a great idea. I need some help. We hosted a dinner for the executive directors and board chairs of 7 organizations and said, do you believe in the vision of effective creative youth development through the arts being accessible and affordable for all youth? They said yes. Do they realize that they can't make a meaningful dent in Miami-Dade County no matter how fast they're going to grow, because there's 330,000 kids and 400 schools. So they realize that they can't do it alone, and that the only way the vision could be accomplished is working together. Subsequent to that group meeting where everybody was kumbaya and bought into it, there were individual meetings with each of the executive directors, which Rebecca Lipsey, Joanne's predecessor at Radical Partners, said were the worst meetings of her life. That I can't, one would say, I can't work with that person because I don't trust him, I don't know him. There just was a lot of it wasn't going to happen. Rebecca, Radical Partners, came up with the brilliant idea to offer opportunities for each of the organizations to collaborate at something they wanted to do, where they and one or more other organizations would work together, where it made sense for each organization, and that they would accomplish more working together than they would alone. That created a fellowship. We had an RFP. 99 or 53 proposals were submitted from 99 proposals were submitted from 53 organizations. And out of that, 7 were selected. 17 leaders of the organizations committed as being part of this fellowship to 1 day a month for a year to attend a meeting that was programmed and executed by Radical Partners. By the end of the 9th meeting, and this was an opportunity for them to get to know and trust each other. Reported the most impactful month was when the organization's leaders were invited on their own to go visit other organizations, learn about those organizations, see what they can learn, see how they might be able to help them. And that really got these leaders to get to know each other and their businesses. So out of that, by the 9th month in September, where we had a retreat, there was a core group of 5 of these leaders, 5 organizations, plus 2 non-local organizations, Save the Music Foundation and Interlochen Center for the Arts, that agreed to coalesce around one of those projects that Young Musicians Unite had collaborated with Carroll City Middle School, where they provided music education where well beyond what had existed at that point in time. So that's one middle school and one nonprofit working with one school. So that was the start. That at the end of that fellowship, 5 organizations: Young Musicians Unite, Guitars Over Guns, Achieve Miami, Arts for Learning, and Miami Music Project, along with Save the Music Foundation and Interlock, and agreed to work together to provide sequential music education, making it available for all students in all of the 13 schools in the Miami Gardens feeder pattern, high school feeder pattern. So fast forward, that's been so successful that today we've got 25 nonprofits working in 64 schools and sites, providing, again, sequential music education, pre-K through high school, making it available, and servicing, at the end of this last school year, more than 13,400 students in 3 high schools and their feeder patterns. Now, the objective is effective, affordable, and accessible. The effectiveness is being evaluated and is being enabled to be able to be evaluated with the collaboration of the superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools and their senior staff. They're providing academic data, grades, attendance, tardies, failed courses, and infractions. Right. And for the kids that are in the programs, and comparing it to a control group of youth, a similar mix of youth who are not. Also, the effectiveness is being measured by a social and emotional assessment tool called Allo Insight, where the classroom teaching artist has the most direct impact. That's effectiveness, affordable. Now all the organizations are evaluating their costs on a per youth per hour basis. We don't know what the right number is, but we know that long-term we've got to manage costs. Costs have to be managed in order to make it accessible for all youth. The average cost, you might find interesting today, is about $9.60 per hour for one student for 1 hour. And then it's got to be accessible. Part of the process is we've implemented Outlook Map for Miami. You should look it up. And as a measure of demand, which the Outlook Map has all of the Miami-Dade County public schools and nonprofits in the arts, their programs are in the map. So anybody who wants to look at the map can find out what programs are near where they want to be, or the types of programs that they're looking for, where in the county they might be. At the start, I think it's 4 years ago, 27% of the youth had music education 1 time a week. This last school year, 84% had music, and most of them, on the average, had it 3.6 times a week. That's the impact over 4 years. This last school year, Arts Access was introduced in South Dade, 2 feeder patterns in South Dade and Homestead. In the first year, they went from 15% of the youth having access and taking part in music ed to 41%. That's just in 1 year. There's no community in the United States that is as well developed in a collaborative effort towards youth development through the arts as what exists today with Arts Access Miami.
Wow, that's impressive, Dan. I am getting a little emotional over here in listening to this progress, right? But I think there's a few things that I want to extract from what you said and why this has been successful, right? So from my perspective, there's been a time commitment, and I don't mean it on a daily basis, but it's been years in the making, right? So you as a philanthropist being willing to do whatever it takes for how long it takes to something as big as this to actually happen, right? So being okay with things taking years. Number two, the importance of having that vision and pulling people into that vision, right? It took time, energy, relationships, a lot of conversations, but we couldn't move forward if we weren't aligned on that vision, right? Which is what I think you brought. Number three, there was significant investment, right? Because it wasn't just do me a favor and come join my vision. You had a lot of skin in the game by writing checks to all of these organizations to welcome them into this collaboration, right? So I want to emphasize that. And the fourth one that kind of popped up to me was the importance of the relationships with the people. Because you mentioned Rebecca, who was our founder at Radical Partners and is now at the foundation. So as the initiative has evolved, so have we, the people that have been involved in the beginning. And we might be in different organizations, we might be in different places, but the trust and the key people that were tied to that vision remains, no matter the circumstances. So as I heard you, those are kind of like the four things that I would love, Dan, for other philanthropists to get, understand, and imitate as much as possible. So on that note, what would you tell others, other philanthropists mostly, to encourage them to invest in more collective impact models?
I think at the beginning, you pretty much covered it. Interests need to be aligned, but you also really need to know what, if you're the funder or the activist philanthropist, you need to know what you want to accomplish and be real clear about that. And then you got to have to use a Jim Collins expression, you got to have the right people on the bus. And the criteria I think about are the people have to be totally open and honest about their intentions and results, continually strive for excellence, always trying to improve, treat others as they want to be treated. And the last, which is often the hardest one to achieve, establish, communicate, and evaluate themselves against clear objectives within a clearly stated mission, and quantify results when able, and dig hard to find the right measures. And then and then we've got a situation in Miami, and I think substantially in every community around the country, where youth development through music or the arts, there's a huge gap between what exists and what is in youth's best interests and where their demand is. So that it's clear. The impact is huge. No one organization can make a meaningful impact on their own. They can grow and do a great job for their kids, but nothing really changes. Nonprofit leaders are conditioned to be parochial, and they see funding as a zero-sum competition. They're competing with each other in order to get funding. And my case is that the narrative should change. Every leader their number one priority is their own organization, but the message should be that, and we're working together with other leaders to accomplish more for our community. What we're seeing with Arts Access Miami is that as much as I have funded, others have funded more, and the rate of funding is increasing. So for me, how much can my efforts influence other funding is an important measure. And Arts Access Miami, collaborative impact model with a great group of leaders, has been hugely successful. And it's just the beginning. We're at 13,000 kids, and there's 330,000 in Miami-Dade County public school system.
You're watching Radical Solutions Lab. Stick around, there's a lot more ahead. At Radical Partners, we exist to accelerate social impact. So earlier this year, we decided to pause, go back to the leaders and the organizations that we invest in, and ask them, what do you need and want right now to continue doing your change-making work? Through this series, we are going to be sharing some of those ideas and solutions that emerge from that conversation, which are not only going to strengthen communities, strengthen the leaders transforming those communities, but also transforming the way we do work in the social impact sector. So we want you to join the conversation on LinkedIn and YouTube. You will get access to these ideas and solutions. And most importantly, you'll have the opportunity to also share yours so that we can do more, better, faster together. And we are back with Radical Solutions Lab.
Dan, one last question for you, because at this point, I'm hoping that whomever is listening to you, they are ready to say, okay, this is what I'm working on. I am going to invest in a collective impact model and all that it takes. But I imagine there were a few fuck-ups along the way, or a few things that you wish you could have done differently. So I wonder if there's one or two of those that you could tell these capacity boosters so that they try to avoid that in the future.
Given my experience, I mean, as I said earlier, giving money to organizations that do a good job for those kids that they serve meets expectations, and that's critical to selection. But if all you're doing is that, nothing changes in the system. So the problems are going to persist. My ambition is systems change. How can we change the system so if we're investing, there aren't so many kids that are in need, that the culture in the nonprofit for arts nonprofit community changes. To be an investor in this space, I think you got to be resilient. Mistakes, I've made mistakes in what the strategy was and who I did business with. And at times it's because they don't have the information needed to assess whether progress is being made, or they don't choose to share it. And when something isn't working right, recognize it, act promptly, and make the change that appears to be needed.
Dan, there's so many t-shirts that can come out of this conversation. Thank you so much for your transparency, for your leadership, and hopefully the ability to make collective impact contagious. I am deeply grateful for the work that we've done over the years, but most importantly, for you being here and willing to teach others how to be a badass philanthropist.
I hope it's helpful, and I love what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
And to you who are listening and watching, thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe, comment, and share, because this is a lab after all. So we also want to hear your ideas, your solutions, so that we can play together and accelerate impact in the US and beyond.